guys, it's Lisa, and today we're going to get started on our recipe album. I'm so excited to get started on a new project with you. So this is the project we'll be working on. It's a mini album. It says memories are made when gathered around the table. So cute. We've got two tags on the front, some ribbon kind of holding them together. Here's the side and the back. Let's take a little look-see here. So before we get started, I'd like to tell you in the details down below this video, if you would like to buy the kit to put all this together, all you'll need is your tools. Go on over to my Etsy shop and pick up the kit for this. Or if you'd like to use your own stash, you can just pick up the PDF. So you can get the digital version of this and just download it and follow right along with us on this one. So both versions comes with this cutting guide, full color instructions, and full color of how it should look if you're going to decorate it just like mine when you're done. So once again, this is where we started here. So this is the front cover. It's got a clear pocket that continues over to the back. So that same seam continues from front to back. I love that. When you have large patterns and you don't really know what to do, that's a really good trick with that. We're going to decorate some tags with stickers and a library card. So this is where I'm going to do my journaling. So I'm going to put these back here in the front so we still get to enjoy the paper and we get to enjoy our pictures this way. This is really cute. This is two tags together with some twine, and I just kind of stuck this in the front pocket here and then made me a little tuck space with this little milk really cute sticker. So you have a pocket here on each page and a pocket in the back. So I also provide for you in the kit these extra big index cards where you can write your recipes. This is one my mother wrote out for me about red velvet and fried cornbread that we have in our family. And then my sister wrote me one for green beans and bacon, little bundles. We always have that every Christmas and Thanksgiving sometimes too. So on the back of this one, I kept it plain with just decorating one of my tags, but it has a big pocket also back here. So there's pockets are back to back. So another pocket here with another recipe. What I plan to do on some of these is to go back and find some of our historical pictures of my grandmother, maybe my mom and I, and put pictures of us in the kitchen together or with the kids cooking together. So then there's a pocket here on the front one like this one too. I've got another couple of tags in the back here. So in each set of booklets you have a short tag, a short pocket, a tall pocket, and on the back a tall pocket. And I just made a little tuck space here with that little Rolodex card that's all decked out. A really cool place for a photo. And pockets, pockets, more pockets. Look at this, so cute. This is another way to use one of those oversized cut apart cards. And flipped over, and here's another little tag that can come out that says home. And then once again on the back, and I found a recipe in my grandmother's handwriting that was a copy of a copy. I included that. That's very special to me that she wrote that out. So if you want to document your family recipes or just your favorite recipes, let's get started. If you picked up the kit from me, let's put this out of the way here. This is what it will look like when it comes to you. You have your bag full of what I like to call goodies. It's got your tags, index cards, all kinds of ribbon and twine here. You've got your glassine bags, because that's what we make our pages out of. So everything you need is right here. You have the ephemera pack. You have a copy of the cutting guide, so you don't have to go and look for that or print it out. It's already in your kit. I've got a sheet of black and red paper we're going to use. You have a tie-vac. Envelope. So we're going to use this to help put together our spine. So also in here is this Country Kitchen by Echo Park. So you get the whole paper pack with stickers. We'll use a lot of those. And then you get a couple pieces of chipboard there in the back. So that's what's going to be in your kit. And like I say, if you have a stash you'd like to use, just pick up the tutorial, download it, print it, or follow along on your computer. And all you have to do is make your own tags, and if you have twine and ribbons, you're good to go. All right, we'll put this out of the way. I already have my kit kind of ready to go. I showed this in my last series, but I'd like to show it again. This is kind of what I do off to the side. I have this I got from Michael's years ago on clearance. It was big enough to hold 12 by 12 paper. So I put my full sheets of paper in here, anything that's kind of smaller in the front, and then I just keep some miscellaneous supplies in the very front pockets of that. Then my other things, I keep these two things on my desk all the time. This you can pick up at any office supply store, maybe the dollar store. It's 8 by 9 inches or so, approximately, and it's a drawer insert. It's just plain plastic, probably a couple of bucks, but I love that it's got all these little spaces here to keep us organized while we're crafting. So I went ahead and put my ribbons and twines in here, and I put all of my ephemera pack. I dumped it out so that I'll be able to kind of flip through that as we go. And here's the other thing I put on my desk. Anything that's bigger that cannot fit in the other one, like 4 by 6 cards. This is even bigger. These are like 5 by 8, I think. And all those, I can have this standing up. I got this at it's either Ross or TJ Maxx in the kitchen section. It's marketed so that you can put it in your pantry. So when you buy those packets of like taco seasoning, those type things, it'll stand up in your kitchen. And I thought it was great for crafting. Okay, all that said, let's get started. So, in your cutting guide, on the very first page, you have got your directions of how to cut out your chipboard. You flip on over to page 2. If you do not have a trimmer that cuts thick things like chipboard, I show you how to get that cut. So you would start with your basic trimmer. You would put your chipboard in. Let me get my chipboard here. You would cut through, and then you would flip it over in the same spot, and you would cut again, and that way you would be able to cut your chipboard. This is medium weight. It's like 50, 52 point. It's not heavy weight. You shouldn't have any problems cutting this out. Or you could always use a ruler and a straight edge to cut through it, but this will work. The only thing I'll say is I like to keep a separate trimmer or a separate blade for my chipboard, just because it is going to definitely dull the blade very quick, and you don't want to use the same blade on paper. Okay, so now looking at your cutting guide, you should have your 3 pieces cut, your front and your back cover and your spine. So that takes us through page 2. And now we're going to start on page 3, and we're going to cut and get ready our binding piece. So, put that away. I'm going to grab my good old scoreboard. Love this one because it has all the 8s marked. All right, so you're going to follow your cutting guide, and you're going to cut out your sheet of paper, and I'm going to put this on the 8-inch side, and so that is how we're going to score. And so of course you've got that on your cutting guide, exactly how to cut that out. Okay, this is what we're going to be making. This was the first one I made as I was just playing around. This is how the back's going to look like, and this is what the front's going to look like. So it's going to have these 3 tabs sticking up. So if I can get you a good shot, yeah, right there. So that's what we're going to do right now. So it's going to be a series of scoring, and then we'll put tape on it, and then we'll fold it up together. So grab what you like to use to score with. Sometimes I use that one, sometimes I use this one, sometimes I use the thing that actually comes with it, just depend. So like I said, we're starting on the 8-inch side, and the way I cut mine is I wanted my stripes to go horizontal, just like this. Okay, so following the cutting guide, we're going to score at 2. Bring this one over so I can see a little better. I'm going to score at 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5. See a pattern here? 4, 4.5. 5, and 6. So I tried to keep this as simple as possible and still get to where we need to be. So just a series of score marks every 1/2 inch from 2 to 6. All right, that's all we need that for now. So we're going to flip this over to the back. So this is what your back piece will look like. And we're going to do some numbering. So let me get my Sharpie so maybe that you can see this on this pattern paper. And we're going to number these 1/2 inch sections. We're going to leave off this long 2-inch piece. So we're going to number them 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to start over. 1, 2, 3, and then I should have a 1 and a 2. All right, if you did it correctly, you should have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and then your 2-inch sides here. That'll just make it a little easier if you've never put one of these together, so that I can kind of talk through which ones that I am doing. So I'm going to grab my tape and something to cut it with. It's another little thing I like to keep. I have lots of different sizes of tapes. I am going to be using my 3/8 of an inch, if I can find it here. Anything less than 1/2 inch. You don't really want to use 1/2 inch because, sorry about that, turn my phone on mute, because you want to, well, I got all thrown off, sorry. You don't really want to use 1/2 inch because these are 1/2 inch and you don't want to get them over on your score line. So anything less than 1/2 inch, which would mean 3/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. If you're using millimeters, you'd use 6, 8, or 10 millimeter. Any of those things would work. So what we're going to do, and I'm still following along on page 3, I'm going to place this tape down on the ones that we numbered number 1. So that's all I'm going to do is right in the center between the 2 score lines of the 1/2 inch sections that we numbered number 1, we're going to put tape. Sorry if my head gets in the way. Got to be able to get it in the center. I do not want to go over the score line. Okay. And simple as that. And I'm still working on the back here. So now all I'm going to do is I turned it back over to the front. And I'm just going to fold on all the score lines and get those working. Just going to try to take my time and not to get too much in a hurry. I don't want to create any additional score lines. I don't want to make any new ones, right? I want it to be as straight as I can make it. And this pattern paper is not too terribly thick, so I can do this without really having to use my bone folder during this section. Okay, so we've got that done. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take off the tape backing and we're going to tape number 1 to number 2. All right, take off my tape backing. So any pokey tool that you've got. So I'm just going to fold on the score line between number 1 and number 2 and put one right on top of the other one and simply just adhere that into place. Now I'm going to use my bone folder to get a good stick. So now when I fold this back over, you can see I've got a pleat here. So that if I were to look on the other side, you can start to see what we're trying to accomplish by making those 3 tabs that stick up. I'm just going to do the same thing again. I'm always going to stick number 1 to number 2. Okay. And fold it back down. And so now what I've got is I can see 2 number 3s right next to each other, and that's correct. So the 2-inch piece, and then a 3, and then a piece of tape. So I'm going to take off the last piece of tape. I'm going to put number 1 to number 2. Fold it back over. And so if you're following along on your cutting guide, we are now in the middle of page 4. So if we're still on the back, this is what it should look like. Your 2-inch sections and 2 number 3s. Only your 3s are showing. I'm going to flip this over, and now I'm going to fold again on my score lines, creating these tabs that are now sticking up. So as simple as that, that is our binding with 3 tabs sticking up. I hope you found that pretty easy. There's not a great way to talk about it, in my opinion, except to do some numbering, but okay. Now let's go ahead and keep going and get this ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this same tape, and I'm going to put a piece of tape on this side and flip over on the other side also. So I'm going to put my tape very close to the cut edge, and using my block to pull up on that to give me a smooth, straight cut. Okay, so this is just one of my flaps. I'm going to keep going on all 3 flaps, and I'm going to do it on both sides. So I'll be right back. Okay, I've got mine all taped up. Both sides of those tabs or binding strips, whatever you want to call them. And now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm working those score lines because I want my book to open and close and all my pages to open and close freely. So got this done. So I'm just going to do a little bit of inking now. I'm going to be using Distress ink in the color of Vintage Photo throughout this whole book. And I'm going to be using a Ranger ink blending tool. I guess I can't blend and talk at the same time. So I'm just going to go over the top and the bottom of these pieces because this is what's going to show. This is going to be glued down in the book, so only this top and bottom is going to show. So if you don't like distressing, if that's not your thing, that's okay too. You can skip that every time I go through this. So now we've got our binding system ready to go. Just kind of put this to the side and hang on to that. We'll come back to that once we get the rest of our book put together. So if you are following along, I am now on page 5. We want to cut out the mats for our actual album. So you got the directions on top of page 5 of how to cut this wide and tall, and also the spine. Let's see. Here's my front and my back. I've got my 2 little strips that I'm going to use, and I don't know that I cut my spine, so I'll go and do that in a few minutes. All right. So here we go. Let's get started. Let's look at also our tie-back envelope. So here's your envelope. What you're going to do is you're going to do a cut out of this. It is an envelope, so of course there are 2 sides. You don't really want to cut this that comes together, so you want to cut it in this strip or on the front, whichever way you would like to do. So we need a 3 1/4 by 10 1/2 strip here. So what I like to do to get my tie-back envelopes ready is I cut the flap off. Just not much you can do with this one. Just kind of get rid of that. So I'm going to try and use this piece here, and I'm going to cut, let's say 3 1/4 by 10 1/2. So move this around, 3 1/4. Okay, so my trimmer's not quite long enough to finish it, so I'm just going to snip that and then put my tie-back envelope away. That's all we're going to need for this project. So you have plenty to use for another project. So I'm going to cut this open on the bottom, or I could just trim this off right at, did I say 10 1/2? Yeah. 10 1/2. So this is enough for 2 because it was doubled over. There we go. continuing on page 5, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my chipboard pieces that we cut earlier and get my spine out. And I'm going to use my tape. Now you could use glue, wet glue on some of these steps, but in the construction process, I really think you need something strong and something not messy. So that's why I use tape. I will switch over to art glitter glue once I get past this construction phase, because it'll be faster and it's just as good to hold down pattern papers. But until then, while we're still doing construction, I'm going to be using this is that Suquane score tape. Okay, I'm gonna go back and get my pokey tool here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to glue this down just eyeball center in the piece of tie back that we just cut. So I think it's enough tape just to go all the way around the edges, but if you want something more, you can add some glue to the center or on top, but I've made a couple of these books just like this and they seem to be just fine this way. So just kind of eyeball center on this one. If you're off just a hair, it's not going to make that big of a difference on this part of it. So I'll show you as we go through a couple of shortcuts that I've learned, especially if you're going to be making a few albums. You might want to do a couple of these things also. Because what we're going to need now is 1/8 of an inch line from the chipboard onto the tie back. So of course you can use a grid ruler like this Tim Holtz one. It's a great one. You can line it up really easy on the 1/8 of an inch and draw a line. That's pretty easy. It's kind of hard for you to see. I'll switch to a black pen and see if you're able to see that. Well, a black pen won't work on that. Let me try marker. No, this will work, yeah. So you could do it this way. Or if you do this a lot, you might want to do something like I do. With that leftover chipboard that you had from this project, you could go ahead and cut you some 2 1-inch pieces, a 1/2 inch piece, 1/8 of an inch piece, 1/4 of an inch piece, things that you might use a lot. I use these a lot. You'll see me pull these back out. I'm going to use my 1/8 inch one, and I keep them right beside me because I make a lot of albums, and I'm going to butt that right up against that piece of chipboard and draw my line. So it's the same difference, right? But for me, since I do a bunch of these, this is a time saver, and I can use this over and over if you have somewhere you can store that. Okay, put my little piece away. Now what we need to do, I'm still on page 5, is cover this tie back in tape. We're going to tape right over those lines, but we'll be able to see them again once we pull the liners back up. So I'm just going right on the tie back on that white envelope piece, and I'm just going to go all the way around the edges, and cover it in tape. Okay, I've got my spine piece all taped up. I did one piece all the way around the perimeter, and then I butted up one piece all the way next to the piece of chipboard. I had a couple of areas left that don't have tape. They're really small, and I think this is good. So I'm just going to make sure I'm burnishing it really well. There's nothing worse than once you get into a project and you start peeling the tape up, and it wants to pull your paper up instead of sticking onto it. So burnishing really well will help you with that piece of it. Okay, so if you're following along, we are now at the top of page 6. So we're going to put this away with the binding system for now, and now we're going to do our covers. So we cut out the mats a while ago, and we have our chipboard. So if you chose the same pieces I have, this is what I am working on here. Okay, so let's just go one at a time. So let's work on our front, which is going to be Chick Chicks. So I'm going to be, since I want chickens to be on the front, this is my album. Since I want these chickens on the front of my album, I'm going to be doing taping on the back. So I'm going to flip this over. And this piece of chipboard is going to go right dead center. So you can glue this piece or you can tape it. So what I'm going to do is like a combination of both. I'm going to put some score tape all the way around the edge or the perimeter, and then I'm going to add some art glitter glue to the middle and simply glue that into place. So I'm going to tape up both pieces of my chipboard and be right back. Okay, I've got my 2 pieces of chipboard all taped up around the perimeter. I'm going to make sure I burnish it really well. If you get some type of bubbling in there, don't worry. See, I've got a little bitty piece right here that's kind of got a bubble or kind of got taped up on top of itself, but that's really the liner piece and not the tape underneath it, so we should be good to go. So I'm going to do one at a time. Like I say, this is I want to be the, check me, here we go. So this I want to be the front. I'm gonna flip it over. So I'm gonna be taping on the dots. I'm gonna grab my art glitter glue, give it a good shake. I haven't opened it yet today. Shocker. Here we go. It's kind of unusual for me here lately. I usually like to come home after work, do a small project, or finish up something I was working on the day before. So there's not too many days that go by that I don't glue something. And so I'm very thankful for art glitter glue because it goes a long way, especially if you're almost daily crafter like I am. So I put some of that around the center, and then what I'm going to do to help put this right in the center is you could use your ruler and draw like an inch around, or let's use another trick. And I better hurry before my art glitter glue dries. And I'm going to pull out these 1-inch pieces I had, put them right in the corner, and then I'm going to put my paper in the corner. Sorry, put my paper in the corner, then put these on top. I'm going to get it in a minute. Now, here we go. Here we go. Yeah, that's what happens when you do craft every day. And I'm going to put this down here. So it's the same difference if you were to just use your ruler and draw 1 inch top and bottom. But since I make so many of these, this really helps me save time. And I've got a place I can put these. So I want this sheet to be my back. So I'm going to flip over to the daisies. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take off my tape backing. I'm glad I got to it quick enough before my art glitter glue dries. That's the blessing and the curse about art glitter glue, right? It dries really strong and really fast, but you've also got to be kind of fast too to get it. Let's see, there we go. Color had gotten a little bit out of whack there. So I put my piece back in that corner of my scoreboard and put my 1-inch pieces right on top there. And now I can just kind of butt this up, and I know that this is 1 inch from the side and the top. Let me know if this tip helped you or not, especially if you like to make a lot of albums. Put my pin in my glue. Make sure this is on really well. So now we're on the middle way, page 6, and we need to do some more taping. So what we want to do is we're going to run tape all the way around the perimeter on the pattern paper. And we're going to do that on both, and then I'm going to run a piece right next to the chipboard, just like we did on the tie back, and then I will be right back. All right, so now I have gotten both of my pieces with tape all the way around the edges and then around the chipboard edge too. So 2 strips of tape. And now comes the fun part, wrapping our pages. So there's lots of different things on the market to help make this easier for you. Or you could do it the old-fashioned way and just use a ruler. So now we're on the middle of page 6. So let me grab this. What you're wanting to do is you're wanting to cut about 1/8 of an inch away. Let me see if I can get my color better here on the screen. Just kind of wanting to black it out here. Give me just a second. Here we go. It's a little better. The light, the sun keeps moving in and out. So if you have a grid ruler, you would want to come out right at, right at a 45-degree angle, which you'll have to guess what that is, right? And you'll come out 1/8 of an inch and you'll make a line. And on that line, you will cut either with a straight edge or a rotary blade, or however you would like to cut that. So let's do that together. See if I can find my straight edge here. So after I did that, I'm gonna come back over. The thing about it is you don't want it to be too short, because then you'll have a naked corner, which nobody wants a naked corner, right? No nakedness. There are lots of things, like I said, on the market to help make this, if you're going to make lots of books, easier for you. This is, and I'm not affiliated with any of these companies. I don't know any of them. I've just used their product. This is perfecttrimruler.com. This one you can use at all different sizes of chipboard, and it uses some type of geometry, and you can put it here and on the corners and then cut. There is a high, you can just make errors with this one. It's not cut and dry, even though it's a great tool. That was the first one I had. So since then, I went to this one that's colorwayarts.com. It's an Etsy shop, and all you do is you put that right in the corner. You can use your straight edge, or I like to use my rotary blade. And this one, a lot less room for error, like that. It's just kind of short. It doesn't go all the way across the page, but that's not too bad. So let's see how I did on this one. Using this tool, I got a little bit I could trim off, so at least I'm not short. And then this one I have gotten recently. It's Darlene by Heart, also an Etsy shop. And it also uses the same thing, kind of butted up here. But it's longer, so I don't have to guess the whole length of it. So there's a couple different options there you can use. If I could just cut through it, I'll be doing good. If that helps you, or you can always, like I say, just use your ruler. The only thing about using the ruler is you kind of have to guess what's a 45-degree angle. But this book is so small, or the chipboard on it is so thin, we're not using that heavyweight chipboard, it's really not that difficult to kind of guess. Well, I can't seem to get that to work today. There we go. Sometimes easier. Simpler is easier sometimes. Okay, so there's number 1 done. Let's go to number 2. I'm going to continue to use this one just because it's so easy. Like I said, you can use your ruler and just come out 1/8 of an inch and just cut it off. So I've just found little tools along the way if I'm going to do this a lot that just make life a little simpler. But if you're not into making lots of scrapbooks, I could see where the $12 or $19.99, depending on which one you pick out, might not be worth it. Okay, here we go. But I always like it when someone shares little tidbits like this with me, just in case I am interested. All right, put my tools up. I'm getting messy and losing some valuable real estate here. Put that back away. So now all we're going to do is get our book ready, and I'm just going to pick it up and fold it right along the edge. You could use your different tools if you wanted to make a score line here, but this paper is really forgiving, and the chipboard, like I say, is not super thick, So we really don't have problems with that. So we are going to be on top of page 7, if you'd like to follow along. So I'm just using my bone folder to kind of continue folding up. This is a little easier sometimes than using your fingers. If your fingers are sore. Like this, okay? So we're gonna fold in the long ones first. So I'm gonna use this to get my tape up here. Taking off that liner. And this is just my personal preference. I find it easier to do the long sides first, whichever book I'm making. You can see where my tape ran out here. I had to get me a new roll. That's one thing about making albums. You will use a half a roll of tape or so on some of these bigger projects, but pretty much guarantee they're not going to come apart. So I'm just going to continue to fold this over gently, gently at first. I'm going to get it kind of tight, push down, and fold directly on that chipboard. There we go. Do the same thing on the other side. Just make a few passes. Don't try to do it all at once. And that will make your life a little easier. Okay, when we know those are glued down pretty good, we're going to start on the short one. So we're going to do this one at a time. So you want to get those corners just right. Pull this up. Now you're going to see, and I've got a pretty good picture of this in the middle of 7, right here where the chipboard meets the paper, you kind of got a little pocket here, a little triangle that sticks up, because this is where the paper comes together, and I'm going to flatten that out. So right here where the papers come together, where we're going to turn it over, see right here, I'm just going to flatten that piece down because I'm going to make this a present, right, and then turn one piece over on top of the other one. So this will help get that bulk out. And then once I do that, then I'm just going to fold it up. I'm going to look at my corners, make sure everything looks good, and then commit to it and push it down. So if you have made a pretty good 45-degree angle and left 1/8 of an inch cut, you're not going to see the chipboard here. If, right? It's happened to all of us at one time or another, and I got pretty good corners on that. So don't be disheartened if it does happen. Just put your little piece of pattern paper or color it with a marker and just call it good. I wouldn't worry too much about it. So I'm going to flatten this down because I have many albums when I first started that would have 3 pretty good corners and 1 not so great. But only you are going to see it. I mean, you do want it to be a nice presentation, but only you are really going to see that unless it's really apparent. Okay, I'm going to make sure I got a good stick all the way around. Use my bone folder and kind of make sure those corners are straight and nothing is sticking out. If there is a lot sticking out, at this time you could just take your scissors and just trim the little point off if you have one. That looks pretty good. Now let's go do the next one. Now this is the one I'm going to trim a little bit because when I was trying to use that rotary blade, it kind of got off a little bit. I got a little piece sticking up here. So it must be time for me to change the blade on my rotary. Goodness, I must be hungry. My stomach's growling. So once again, I'm going to take this and kind of fold over and get this started. Like I said before, if you like to, you can run your bone folder around the edge. But this paper is not that thick. I mean, it's good cardstock, but it's not super thick like some. So I don't have much problems with this project of getting this to turn. Now, sometimes I have used some papers, yeah, and it cracks or it's very difficult to turn. So I feel you on that if you ever had that happen. But if you just kind of do it in stages, a little bit at a time, you should be good to go. All right. So once again, I'm going to do my long sides first. And let's see, yeah, we've done pretty good so far. Let's see how far we can get today. might could at least get our book put together. All right, so push this over. Get it on there straight as you can. This side. Pull it tight and kind of help it a little bit. I had a little premature sticking. Nobody likes that. There we go, looks good. All right, so then on the short sides, we'll do the same thing. Take the backing off. I'm gonna smash down those little pieces here that overlap. A little triangle, make it flat. And then wrap it around, over like it was a small present. So pretty. So you can see both sides of mine look pretty good. One of them I did by hand with the ruler, so it's got a little bit, maybe 1/8 of an inch that's flat here, where this one has, I don't know, maybe 1/16 of an inch flat. I don't even know if you can see the difference. So there's just a minuscule difference, but no one's ever gonna notice that. But they both did the trick using the ruler the old-fashioned way and using some of these other tools. Just depends on what you want to invest in, what you're going to use the most, right? All right, and I do want to trim this one up. This is the one that I had that issue with my rotary blade. So, yes, I hope that this gives you some hope when you have problems with yours, to know that even those of us that's been making books or scrapbooking for 20-something years still have little things like that that come up, right? I always like to see when people leave those little type things in their projects, like, oh, it's not just me who has issues some days. All right, so I'm gonna pull this up. It's tight. And we're gonna have 2 covers that are ready to go. And make sure my corners are straight. Things pushed down. I don't think I need to trim anything off. So here's front and back. Love, love, love. Before I forget, if you make one of these projects and you decide to use different paper, please let me know what you chose. I would love to see what that looks like. And we have a Facebook group called Lisa Wise Designs. Excuse me, get something to drink here. To post pictures there. I would love to see what you come up with. So now we're going to be at the top of page 8. And we're going to kind of put our album together. And this is where we will stop today. But let's see if we can get our album together. So we have gotten the front cover with the chickens. We're going to turn that over, make sure our chickens are right side up. And then with the flowers, it's going to be on the right hand side. I'm going to flip that over, make sure it's right side up. So this is what that should look like. So just be sure, whichever front cover, whatever you want your front cover to be, when you're laying it down, it's on the left-handed side, and the back cover is on the right-handed side, and that it is, make sure that you have got, when you see your paper, that it's right side up, right? Just like that. Believe me, I made that mistake trying to figure this out one time. So, yeah, do as I say, not as I did. Learn from me. So we're going to go back to that spine piece that we made here with the white. And we're going to take all that tape off. So just be easy, because tie back can be a bear sometimes. But the reason we use it is because you can't really, you could cut tie back, but you really can't pull on it and tear it. And I'm sure there's other properties to it, because they use, you know, big sheets like this and housing, building houses. They, you know, you can ship, you can ship all kinds of things in tie-back envelopes, and you can cut into it, but you really can't pull it apart. So it really makes a good backing for an album to kind of hold the pieces together, because it's going to have a lot of stress put on it, because it's going to hold everything. Okay, so we're going to put this in the center. You can see those black lines that we drew in. That's where you're going to put your book on. So this spine piece is exactly the same size as this piece, like this. So that's what you want to do. You want to line this up where these line up together, the top and the bottom of the chipboard pieces, but you're going to put it right on that black line that we drew. So it should be easy peasy to put together. You do not have to guess. And just put it down. Same with the one on the left, which is our front cover. Right on that line, and then right up to the chipboard, and burnish really good into place. So now all we're going to do is pull the top and the bottom over this album. So we're just going to pull it straight up, and I am in the middle of page 8 if you're following along in your directions. Just going to use my fingers to start working this around. Okay. And then gently with my bone folder, I'm going to kind of make indentations where this comes together. Just going to pull on it a little bit, but that's okay. I want to make sure it sticks really good, and then I've got this indentation where the spine meets here. Okay, burnish it really good, but making sure not too rough, do not want to tear. Okay, look, we have a book. Chickens, white for now, and flowers. Nothing's upside down. This was on the front. We did good. We did good. So I'm just going to keep working this a little bit now that I've shut it. There we go. So one more thing we'll do before we go is let's go ahead and put the decoration on our spine. So for this, I don't need to do anything like that because this is going to be covered up. The edge is going to be covered up. Yeah, I don't need to do anything like that. So I'm going to flip this over. And, you know, the cutting for this was way back when we cut these out. I just didn't show this one to you. And I want to use the daisy, so I'm going to put my tape on this side that looks like a whole bunch of vegetables and birdhouses and just cutesiness. I really think this paper is country, but it's got splashes of modern because of the colors that they chose. It's got some of those aqua blues and reds and lots of touches of gray, which I think really, you know, brings that in to modern. So let's see. And I'm going to put one right down the center. Feel free to cover it if you would like, but I think that's a little overkill. I want to make sure I get my edges and then something right in the center. And I'm going to take this up. And basically the outside of our album is going to be completed. So I hope you found this helpful and that it was not too difficult. I think it's gone pretty well today. No big problems, right? Especially if this is your first album that you've ever done. I'm on the bottom of page 9. I'm going to open up my album to the outside. And then I'm going to center this piece on top of the white. So I'm going to have to use my grids on my mat to kind of help me a little bit. So it's only about 1/4 of an inch bigger than the white. So just want to make sure you get all that white covered up and that it is about 1 inch from the bottom. And let's see, that looks pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty center. Make sure, go that down a little bit. So then when you pop this up, this should be real easy. Like that. We don't want our paper to crack. It's almost like we have to whisper, "Don't crack, please." And then now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to create a fold and pull it over. So I'm not going to go too terribly tight. I don't want this paper to crack. And if it doesn't cover up all of the white, which mine's not going to at the top because mine wasn't dead center because I just eyeballed it, that is okay. We're going to put a piece over it that's going to cover it up. The spine piece, or the binding piece, excuse me, is going to cover all the center up, so no worries. That is why I didn't worry too much about eyeballing. Now I'm going to try and fold back again really slowly. I'm going to use my bone folder. I'm going to get right in here and kind of hold it down as I'm turning it. I'm going to get my paper kind of in the center. I'm not going too hard because I do not want to cut into that paper. I don't want it to rip, and I'm just trying to stretch it a little bit to get this on good, a good stick, but I don't want it to crack. And this paper is really good for that. One more thing I like to do when making an album this way, I like to put little strips to connect the two pieces. So what I did is I cut some, are they 1/8 strips? Let's see. No, they're 1/4 inch. You should be able to eyeball that. I made little 1/4 inch strips that goes all the way around inside the album to kind of pull together these two pieces. So that's also in your cutting guide. I'm just going to keep slowly working this paper as I keep turning it over to make sure it's stuck well. Don't want it to come up. And you've got to train the paper, right, that you're going to be folding it. So put this back over. So on this one, you would want to use your Distress ink if that's the look that you're going for. So I'm going to put a little bit of Distress ink on my edges. Just on the long edges. You're not going to see the short ones. Whoa. Knock that down pretty good. Sorry, art glitter glue. And then the other one. Then we're going to glue this into place, and then we will come back tomorrow and keep working on it. And then hopefully we'll get to start decorating, because I think that's some folks' really favorite part. So I'm going to switch on over to my art glitter glue, since this is not part of the construction. This is all decoration. And then I put glue right on my table. That's always nice. So I'm going to eyeball this center once again. I'm going to butt it up to the daisy paper. I'm not going to go over the daisy paper, just butting it up. Just getting this to stick. Flipping it over and pulling that around and butting it up to that paper. Kind of work a little faster here. Get that to stick. My glue off my table here. So I'm going to make sure I got a good stick. Like I said, since I'm eyeballing it, these are not lining up exactly, but that is okay. We're going to put pattern paper and our binding strip in there, so you're never going to see it, which is why I usually tell you when you need to, measure versus when you can eyeball. Put a little more of this. Okay. So thanks for being here today on this first video that we're doing on our recipe album. Like I say, if you decide to make one, and if you decide to make one with different paper, if you get a kit or use your own paper, go on over to our Facebook page, which is Elisa Wise Designs there also, and show us some pictures. Give us some inspiration. We would love to see it. If you want to see more videos like this, let Facebook know by giving it a thumbs up. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, now's the time to also do that. If you've got some suggestions on what you'd like to see in kits, let me know that too. I've got some coming down the line, but then I'm also interested to see in what you would like to do. So we'll stop here today. So this is kind of where we are. This is kind of where we're going. And right now, see, it's popping up because the paper has not been trained and there's nothing in here heavy to hold it down. So thanks, guys, for being here today. I'll see you here tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye.